What if there is a magic ritual you could perform that puts you immediately in front of one of the 7 classical planets? There you could plead your case, petition a specific request, and because you did such a good job at figuring out what time to do this, they give it to you. Hi, I'm Lama Judge, Buddhist priest and astrological magic educator, and today I'm going to be showing you exactly how to perform a petition as defined by Picatrix, discuss how it relates in similarity and differences to talismans, which Picatrix discusses quite a bit as well in it, and which it is more famously known for. And we'll review 2 different petitions that I have performed, one that I've had a bit lukewarm of an experience with, and one that frankly knocked it out of the park better than I could ever imagine. By the end of this video, you'll have a good understanding of how to find an election for performing a petition by yourself, how to organize the materials and ritual structure, and hopefully feel confident enough to go to the source text and review it yourself to complete your understanding. And finally, if you'd rather just have me perform a petition for you, or have me tutor you a bit more one-on-one to get it right, evaluate some of your elections and ritual choice, I will discuss that as well too. Because a well-spoken and performed petition is like having the masterful power of Orpheus, the legend himself, who is said to be able to enchant all aspects of the natural world, rocks, plants, animals, just with the sound of their voice. Similarly, the petitions in Picatrix allow us to command the realms of the celestial spheres, just like we ourselves were Orpheus. Now, before I go over a method for petition, I wanted to spend a little time going over the similarities and differences between how Picatrix talks about petitions and how Picatrix talks about talismans. Because if you think of them in the same way and approach them the same way, you're going to have major mistakes and you're not going to get the result that you want. I've learned this firsthand. For every story of a successful petition and a successful talisman is a countless amount and number of duds and failed attempts behind the scenes. So let's look at this comparison. Now with talismans and Picatrix, there is so much emphasis on materials and images. This is because as a planetary spirit travels from the noetic realms, these more theoretical and subtle realms, and is drawn into the realm of matter, it needs some direction from the mage in order to know how it is supposed to behave. What is its goal? How do we communicate with something that does not use language the way we do? We have to use language, esoteric systems of knowledge, esoteric systems of language, in order to symbolically communicate in the way the spirit is attuned to receiving information. This, combined with the nature of the mage themselves, the one who is performing the ritual, is going to be defining how a talisman acts in practice. We need to create a manufactured little womb, a new house for the spirit to live in. And this is why images and materials are so important for talismans and heavily emphasized in Picatrix. Overall, the mechanism of how the talisman affects reality is still constantly debated. No one knows and has an answer. Though if anyone here has a 1000% mind of God answer, please let me know in the comments. I would love to know myself. But I've yet to know anything that is beyond theory and makes sense across every religious tradition. But one thing practitioners are constantly agreeing upon is that the effects of the talismans do appear to be local and mediated based on the nexus of whoever is using it. Maybe I don't have to wear my talisman every single day, but there seems to be a diminished effect. Say, if I kept my talismans at my home while I went on vacation in Wyoming, I wouldn't be getting the same level of effect if I didn't bring it with me. And I think this tracks very well because we can see in traditional texts what is a popular use of these talismans that is literally burying them under houses or places of worship, maybe even sacred gardens, in order to imbue this area with the nature of the talisman, thus reinforcing the fact that talismans have a more local nexus of effect. However, a petition is different. There is more of an emphasis on prayers, what's being said, and the sacrifices made during that moment of time, especially the suffumigations. In general, Picatrix refers to suffumigations as an ethereal link between the world of material reality and that of the realm of the stars. And it's because we are emphasizing this aspect of the magical ritual, the effects don't need to be as local. And many practitioners of petitions, although there are really quite few of us who are doing this, are able to manifest effects that sometimes have a global impact or a global influence. There's also a heightened emphasis on the nature of the person performing the petition, even suggesting certain dietary protocols, as well as the way one dresses in order to elicit the correct response from the planetary hierarchy you're talking to. And this makes sense. When you have an audience with a king, you want to look nice. And a very important secret to note about the performance of petitions is that the lord of the mages and practitioners' nativity and the placement of that planet in one's nativity, in the natal horoscope, has an effect on whether the planet is more likely to fulfill your petition. This doesn't seem in practice to mean that if you have a planet that is in detriment or exile, that you cannot succeed in making petitions work. It's just you may have a harder time. And Picatrix even gives some loopholes and suggestions on the planets to work with to achieve certain goals, as well as follow-up choices for if those planets are afflicted in your nativity. I highly recommend reading Picatrix Book 3, Chapters 7 through 10 to get more of this information. In brief, you could almost think of having a talisman as having your favorite planet on speed dial, ready to call at a moment's notice, and then they will send over to you whatever kinds of friends and resources that you are in particular need of that relate to the original contract you made with them. While a petition is like getting a personal audience with the planet, where it's appropriate to be well-dressed, well-prepared, where you can plead your case, and if you do it at the right time, maybe the Lord of this realm of existence will grant you your wish. Here is the primary source instruction directly from the Christopher Warnock and John Michael Greer translation of the Picatrix, and I want to read it word by word, just to emphasize what is being said. When you desire to speak with any planet or ask it for anything that you need, first and above all else, purify your will and your faith in God, and beware especially that you believe in no other. Then cleanse your body and your garments of all dirt. Then determine the nature of the planet to which your petition corresponds. Now, let me pause here real quick. Notice the order of operations here. What's coming first? The nature of the petitioner, the state of mind, body, and spirit of the mage themselves. It's not the election. It's not the incense. It's not the material. It's really all of the work and preparation in the mind and spirit of the mage that they've done to that point. Their relationship with the planet. Their will and determination to see the petition through. Then the passage goes on to explain the body and the clothes as the next important thing. When you wish to address the planet to which your petition properly belongs, dress in clothing dyed the color of that planet, and suffumigate yourself with its suffumigation, and pray its prayer. Do all this when the planet is established in its dignities and called superior in its dispositions. For by observing these things, what you desire will come to pass. And this is the full abbreviated instruction. Everything we're going to talk about really flows from this passage. Specifically, we can break down a petition into 7 core steps. Number 1, choose your planet. Do you have a planet that's particularly well dignified in your chart? Excellent, start there. What can it do? Sun for the favor of those in power and authorities. Jupiter for wealth and the fulfillment of all of one's unseen and true desires. Venus for love and enjoyment in life. Saturn for the removal of suffering and protection from enemies. And Mars for when you gotta win. Number 2, find the right election. This is complicated, and we're going to go into this further in more detail a little bit later. Step 3, double check your election and double check that it is aligning with the goal of your petition. You cannot spend too much time doing this. This is a crux point of where the art lives. And although it may not be the only essential component, it's something you can't overlook or underachieve yourself into. One missed retrograde significator or one bad aspect to a malefic planet may be enough to ruin your petition. Step 4, prepare yourself and your space. Is the location of your petition aligned with the location of the planet and the sign that it's in? It may be worthwhile taking a small vacation out into the woods in order to perform one of these petitions successfully. Are you living your life aligned with the values of the planet that they will respect? An easy and common way to do this is to fast for a period of time where you eat only the foods associated with those planets. Maybe you already have talismans or other materia and magic, and you can choose to wear only those kinds of talismans in order to strengthen your connection with that planetary hierarchy. Prepare the suffumigations, sacrifices, and prayers. Picatrix gives extensive lists for the appropriate suffumigations, herbs, and incenses for each planet. And although I am not doing any live animal sacrifices, although there are living religious traditions that do this. For Jupiter, for instance, I am going down to my local butcher or grocery store, buying some lamb steaks, cooking it in order for me to enjoy alongside with the spirits of Jupiter. And once you have your suffumigations, you can then choose which kinds of prayers to use in order to communicate your petition. Picatrix has a number of spirit names and pre-written prayers and petitions that relate to the nature of the planets. I would highly recommend starting there before adapting your own. In a way, all these various spirit names that exist in Picatrix act a bit like a routing address, making sure that your request channels through the correct channel, directing it to the right spirit in the right office in order for it to arrive at the desk of whoever is making the decision. Step 7, speak your petition. Perform the ritual within the allotted electional time, face the direction that the planet is literally in the sky, and make sure you've done your best with the resources you have. Now, regarding the election, let me read you what Picatrix says about petitioning Saturn specifically, because it is this that sets the template for petitioning all the other planets. When you want to speak with Saturn and ask him for whatever you wish, you must wait until he enters into good condition, of which the best is when he is in Libra, which is his exaltation, next in Aquarius, which is his house of rejoicing, and last in Capricorn, which is his second house. Notice this hierarchy. First is the sign of exaltation. Then it is the house of rejoicing. And third is this house of rulership. We can apply this principle to determine which house a planet should be petitioned in. This text also gives us a brilliant metaphor here for these positions, and I really want everyone to remember this. When the planet is in good condition and remote from infortunes, he is like a man of good will and a lively heart, and a great and ample mind. And if another person seeks something from him, he cannot find it in himself to deny the petitioner. And the reverse metaphor. When the planet is retrograde or cadent, he is like a man full of anger and ill will, who is most ready to deny a petition. So this is the major axiom to take away. You want to catch the planet when they are in a very generous mood, willing to say yes, maybe not even for the best reasons, but because they are feeling quite magnanimous. You don't want to find yourself petitioning a planet when it's having a particularly bad day and looking to cause trouble just for the sake of it. So here are your 5 electional criteria. This is the thing to write down and to burn into your intelligence forever as a basis for understanding how to elect Picatrix petitions. Number 1, the significator of your petition must be dignified. For Saturn, this is Libra, Aquarius, Capricorn, but also any number of terms or faces or areas where Saturn may be experiencing essential dignity. We can't always wait around for the perfect election, but there are minimum viable criteria that we can utilize in order to have a successful petition. Number 2, no negative aspects to the petition planet, especially squares to the malefics. Instead, if we can have supporting, applying aspects to benefic planets, this is much preferred and is a successful petition. Number 3, we want the Lord of the Ascendant applying to the petitioned planet. This is essential because we want a connection between us, the Lord of the Ascendant, the person performing the working, and that of the petitioned planet. This is represented by the aspect between the L1 of the first house at the petitioned planet. As you will see, you can cheat a little bit by making the L1 both the petitioned planet, thus reducing the criteria to need the L1 to be perfectly aspecting the petitioned planet, because they become the same. Practically, I think this makes it so the mage and the person performing the petition needs to do more of a job of making their lives and individual nature and will more aligned with that of the individual planet. This is just what I've seen in practice. Point 4, we want an unafflicted moon. The moon is the ruler of the sublunary realm of which we live and is the conduit for all magic. If the moon is afflicted by malefic aspect or essential debility, we will not have a successful petition. 5, consider whether the planet is diurnal or nocturnal. For nocturnal planets, we want the sun traveling ahead of the planet in the election. For diurnal planets, we want the planet to have already risen before the sun. How essential is this for the petition itself? It doesn't seem to be like a deal breaker, but it's listed in the text so we can consider it. And once again, here's a very important aphorism from chapter 4 of Picatrix we should keep in mind. Your petition will be quickly fulfilled if the planet to which you make your petition is the Lord of your nativity. Yes, spooky spirit creaking the door. I would agree. We should remember this. If Saturn is the lord of your nativity or ruler of your ascendant, then Saturn petitions should pack a greater punch. Now, if you aren't familiar with essential dignities and debilities, you can find these charts all over the internet. Here is a nice one that I have made to go on the screen. Another short list of non-negotiables involve making sure the L1, Lord of the Ascendant, or the significator is not retrograde, making sure L1 in the petition planet is not in a sign of debility and is instead in signs of essential dignity, and we don't have malefic planets making aspects to the moon, the L1, or the petition planet. A petition planet in dignity, but getting a square from Mars, is kind of like a king having a great feast, but then a guest becomes very rowdy and tries to attack him. A beautiful, magnanimous gathering turns sour, and I doubt the king is going to be in a very giving mood after that. It would certainly require a troubadour with the voice and wit of Mercury to turn such a sour event into one of success and joy again. Let me show you what a full suffumigation recipe actually looks like. So take common fleabane, bdellium, myrrh, opium, elecampane, and Sicily, 7 ounces each. Nettle tree, lavender, and peeled pine nuts, 3 ounces each. Orris root, cardamom, aromatic calamus, frankincense, and mace, 5 ounces each. Dried roses, saffron, spikenard, caper root, and cinquefoil, 4 ounces each. Aromatic coltsfoot, balsam grains, and mother of thyme, 9 ounces each. 1 ounce of squill, 2 pounds each. Cucumber seeds, cardamom, terebinth, powdered dates, and peeled raisins, and 5 pounds of clarified honey. Grind everything, mix with the best wine, and make into pills. This isn't a casual incense blend. This is a full-blown operation. Certainly beyond the casual, maybe I'll get into incense as a hobby. Someone would probably need to work up to do this. This isn't even considering that if you really wanted to do this the best way imaginable, you would only be making this incense during times of where the sun is in essential dignity from ingredients that were harvested at optimal election. This would be some of the highest form one could perform this magic. Later on, then it also says, when you have finished, behead a rooster and eat its liver. Now, you don't necessarily need to recreate this recipe. The complexity of suffumigations I've used in petitions have never been this close or ornate. And for the ones who have worked pretty well. But what matters, I think, is this crucial principle, and that is the suffumigations are elaborate, intensive, specific, and very related to the hierarchy and qualities of the planet itself. For most modern practitioners, a simple solar incense is probably at most what people have on hand, but Picatrix is setting a very important precedent. These petitions are not casual magical operations. These are specific moments of worship and direct connection with the divine, and really aren't something to be doing lightly. Now let me show you a real petition that I performed. And this was a Saturn petition I performed in February of 2022. So in this election, we have Saturn on the ascendant. It's Saturn hour. Saturn is rising before the sun, but Saturn applies to the moon. Whew, excellent. And the Lord of the Moon is in a Saturn-ruled sign. Excellent. In this petition, I made 2 requests, one specifically for myself and one for a list of friends and family and individuals that were particularly in need of some reduction of suffering in their lives. So personally, I had seen some business opportunities inherent within the home improvement industry of where I lived, particularly because it was a legacy industry with long-standing incumbents that focused on very high level of expertise, knowledge of performing physical labor. And so I wanted to ask for favor with the elderly, those who are wise, and those who are laborers, who are skilled with their hands, skilled in building. And then a second set of petitions I did for a number of friends, families, and colleagues who, like I said, needed some reduction in suffering in their lives. The result of this was that in the following weeks, I had ended up more deeply connecting with a friend of mine who had legacy connections in the home improvement industry. He himself was a senior citizen, and we ended up going in business together for about 6 to 8 months and really learned a lot about the industry and the business. And at the end of the day, he really got a lot of help My biggest takeaway was learning that I, in fact, did not like anything that had to do with working with this individual or the industry in which I was trying to get into, and that it was ultimately not a very good fit. Overall, it was a fun and fruitful ride, but not something I wanted to commit to long term. And both of us were able to graciously leave the situation. I don't know how much of you have had business relationships before, but they don't always end that way. Now, for those who I performed the petition for, I had one individual who was struggling with depression and career focus as a self-employed herbalist, massage therapist, and naturopathic doctor. And it was after this petition that they were able to really hone in on their strengths, sign up for additional education and career training, and now runs a very strong and thriving clinic. This is the second Saturn petition I'd ever performed, and ultimately I think it's a bit lukewarm in terms of results, but I think it's a good case study of understanding the electional principles and how they play out in practice. Important to note is that Saturn is not as strong in my nativity or as important to my nativity as the next planet we're about to talk about. And I think you could say that Saturn did a very good job at giving me what I wanted, but in a way that served better he, himself, and the plants, animals, creatures, and beings that Saturn has a more direct purview over. This was a situation where I very much was an effective tool within a Saturnian sphere of influence and players that allowed me to have what I wanted, but I was certainly not the main character in these narratives or stories that was going on. Hence, this may be a good reason why there is this suggestion around making sure the planet is strong or well placed in your nativity. You could be taken for a little bit of a ride if you go to the court of the planet asking for what you want, especially if it already isn't on your side. Potentially, this also could have to do with the L1 also being the petition planet. The next example I have is of a recent petition that I performed while Jupiter was in Cancer. This petition was also performed as part of the opening ritual for my North Star camping event, which is where a lot of astrology, magical, and astrological magical individuals get together to learn and perform magic in the woods of Southwest Washington. So we had about 20 practitioners getting up in the morning, making talismans, and assisting me in the performance of this petition. So in this petition, Jupiter is exalted, and it's also Jupiter day and hour. Jupiter is on the ascendant as the petition planet, but the L1 is moon, and the moon is exalted. The suffumigations were very simple for this. It was just aloes wood and saffron. I use the highest quality saffron that I have, as well as the highest quality aloes wood that I have, which frankly is quite expensive and smells absolutely divine. Part of the petition was for the success of the event and for all the participants to have an incredibly divine and spiritually awakening experience, which they did. But I've talked a little bit about that in my other videos. And that was more or less the group goal. But I had my own individual goal, which was recently someone close to me had experienced a tremendously terrible life event. And one of their family members had reached out to me asking if their family could receive a little extra support. And this was something I was deeply moved by. And in the petition text to Picatrix for Jupiter, there is this phrasing of asking Jupiter to fulfill the desire that is so secret within our hearts that we are unable to articulate. That desire, that want, that goal, please fulfill that. And so as I read that text, I brought the image of this family and of the tremendous loss that they had suffered and desperately gave my wishes to Jupiter to have something happen to help give them extra support. And it was a week after this event when I had performed this petition, the family member that requested it reached out to me, letting them know of some news. The patriarch of their family decided to sell one of their extra houses, hello boomers, because they were tired of paying its monthly expenses. And as a kind of consolation or inheritance prep, he decided to pay off the mortgages of both of his children. One of them being the person who requested me to give this petition, and their brother being the individual who had suffered a tremendous and terrible loss recently. This was very well needed, as the younger brother of the two who had experienced this loss had gotten themselves into a state where they could barely leave the house, let alone figure out a way to consistently sustain themselves. I'm also happy to report that the entire family seems to be doing better and experiencing much less stress and much less suffering, which fits quite well to the strengths of Jupiter and the ideals of a Jupiter in Cancer petition. I also did my best to have fun with my ritual outfit, wearing a number of Jupiter talismans, both Jupiter in Cancer, Jupiter in Sagittarius, and Jupiter in Pisces talismans that I made. I also found a tremendously fun white and yellow outfit in which to perform the petition early in the morning. Picatrix says, dress yourself in yellow and white garments and go to a place that you have set aside for these workings, humbly and gently, in the manner of hermits and Christians, with a belt tied around your waist and a crystal ring bearing a cross on your finger, and wear a white cap. So my outfit was certainly yellow and white, but it did not have all of the rest of the Christian required accoutrement. So clearly one does not have to adhere to the translators or maybe even the author's ideas of Christian piety and Christian purity in order to have really quite slam dunk results from your petitions, at least in the case of Jupiter. So there you have it. Those are the complete steps from Picatrix. I hope this was a great introduction and helps you navigate the territory of performing Picatrix petitions. Straight from the primary sources, broken down into 7 steps, and we even got to review 2 examples. Now, my honest truth on Picatrix petitions is that they are incredibly arduous to perform. Even though the rituals can be quite simple, they are very taxing to do. The hardest part really isn't the ritual. It is finding the election and the time to do it, and carving out the rest of your life to align itself around the perfect timing for the ritual. I find if you're able to do that, articulating a desire and end goal for the petition becomes a lot easier. Also, with these petitions, the next available window for one is never weeks away. It's at least months and probably years. If you want to try this yourself, I'd love to hear about it, and I'd love to hear about what you're thinking of as the main obstacle for you to perform one of these petitions. Do you even think it's worth it? If I hadn't received some level of positive results when I first did one in 2017, I probably would have completely ignored petitions. There's many ways to talk to a planet, but petitions themselves, the results are in, and I'd say, oh yes, thankfully they're worth it. Good luck hunting for elections, and I'd be happy to give you my 2 cents on ones you would like a second pair of eyes to look at. Now, if you'd rather have me perform a petition for you, I do offer this as a service. Send me an email and I'll put you on a list to notify you of any possible times or potential times where there could be a petition in the future. And if you are someone who wants to go deeper into the magic of the Picatrix, really understanding how to tie together materials, images, prayers, I do offer an intensive mentorship called Catching Starlight, where I walk people through all these steps. And I'm working on a more general introductory course and perspective on making talismans in the Picatrix. Descriptions will be below for you to sign up and get more information about that in the future. I also have a free set of lectures on Mercury mantras, magic, and remediation, now live for free on my Patreon until the end of July. So if that's of interest to you, check it out. I've got more planetary and astrological magic tutorials and videos coming. Thank you for watching. And as always, if there's anything you're particularly interested in learning, please let me know. Once again, this is Llama Josh. See you on the other side.